Mounce, BBG, Chapter 20, Sentence 10. We are finishing up here, Chapter 20. So this one is confusing in several places, so you got to kind of put your thinking cap on. First thing, as you're kind of looking through the sentence, you recognize that there's a quote here, and this is the quotation. So that's important to notice. And then, recognize that he said, so that is about what you'd expect right before a quotation mark, so you're good there. But then let's work up to the quotation mark as a section, and then we can take the quote as a separate section, and then maybe even further divide that with the chi's. But bottom line is, the first temptation you might have is, Eckman is typically he said, or he, she, it said. Most of the time you're going to go with he said, but you might be tempted to say something like, because of this and the wisdom of God, he said. You might be very, very tempted to translate like that. The problem is that if you do that, you weren't paying attention to Hey Sophia, because as soon as you see that hey, you say, well, wait a minute, that has to be the subject, cannot be part of this prepositional phrase that's introduced by dia. All right, so that's not going to work. And we see tuto, and we recognize, you say, well, that could be nominative or accusative. Well, no, it can't. It has to be accusative, because dia doesn't take the nominative. Dia can only take the accusative if you're talking about those two options. So, between nominative and accusative, dia will only be taking the accusative here. So, that doesn't line up either in terms of process of elimination. So then you go back to the drawing board and you say, well, this then is your subject clause, all right, the wisdom of God. Then you have your verb, and it's the wisdom of God said. All right, hopefully everybody sees that. This is your subject and verb, the wisdom of God said. Well, then you got to figure out and go, well, wait a minute, what's the chi doing then? Well, remember, chi is not just and. That's not the only meaning. Is not only and, it's even or also. And this is one of the places where you say, well, let's try it with some other options and see what we can do. And if we start here, we say, because of this, even the wisdom of God said. Well, okay, maybe. Let's go back and try again. Because of this also, the wisdom of God said, yeah. Or for this reason also, the wisdom of God said, yep, that works. That works. So you're done at that point. And again, just treat this as an also. And again, because of this also, the wisdom of God said, and that way you keep Hey Sophia as your subject, and you're good to go. Okay? So because of this also, the wisdom of God said, and then you have what the wisdom of God said. You run into your first verb here, and there's no subject. You notice that it's first singular because of that omega at the end. And you say, okay, well, can only have I as a subject, but there's no ego there. So that's built into the verb. But beyond that, what you notice is that you have only one lambda. If you remember apostello, the verb you first would have learned would have a double lambda. So you see the absence of that second lambda, and you go, okay, I'm dealing with a different stem. And then you realize, well, wait a minute, it's apostello, which tells me it's a liquid verb. A liquid verb is lambda, mu, nu, or rho. Here we got a lambda. So it is a liquid verb. A liquid verb plus that circumflex accent tells me, guess what? It's a future. Again, if I didn't know that the future stem looks like apostello minus the lambda, if I didn't know that, then even the other pieces would help me get to that conclusion that this is a future verb. And those other pieces are that I'm dealing with a liquid verb plus the circumflex. Liquid consonant plus circumflex equals future. So I will send, and then you got ace. And again, ace is one of those prepositions that can take you all over the planet. So you kind of got to go by feel sometimes. And ace can be to or toward, and that's probably what I'd run with here. I will send, because what do you do when you send? You send somebody to someone, all right? So I will send to, and then you have that accusative plural, to them, from autos, okay? So I will send to them whom? Prophetos kai apostolos, that hopefully is easy enough. Prophets and apostles, right? So what you have here is here are your direct objects, prophets and apostles, and then you have this prepositional phrase, to them. So I will send to them prophets and apostles, and whether you want to yank that prepositional phrase and put it at the end like we would in English or not, that is your call. I would guess most of the time that's what we do, and you would say, I will send prophets and apostles to them, if you translate it that way. And then you have the tail end of what he said, what the wisdom of God said, and that is, and then you have this strange thing. Again, I went ahead and gave it to you because, and Mounce talks about it in his footnote, if you want to read the footnote there in the workbook. But bottom line is, it is what's called a partitive genitive. And, if you just went with it, sort of look at X and say, and out from them, out of them or out from them, you could get close. But again, this is one of the uses of the genitive. One of the ways that you can work with the genitive is to treat it as what's called a partitive genitive. And you're just going to translate ex autone as some of them. Okay, so again, out from them, they'll kill not all of them. They'll kill out from them some, is kind of the way you want to think about that. All right, so one of the possibilities, again, of the genitive. And some of them, and you can pull that to the end again because it is a prepositional phrase. Whether you want to or not is your call. And then you're dealing with a third person plural, right? And hopefully you recognize that with the movable new there. And you go, okay, hopefully I recognize that as coming from apoctanu, or I'm sorry, apoctano, which has an epsilon iota. So this is another one of those that in the future you simply have sort of a minus iota thing going on. And again, Mounce would say that essentially this is the closer to the root, and the root simply added an iota to make it a present stem. All right, so this is actually closer to the root. And then an iota got added. So either way, the bottom line is you need to recognize that very, very common for a future stem to not have that iota that you memorized when you first memorized the present. And that's what's happening here is you're missing that iota. The other piece, again, like in a lot of other places, if simply all you know is when you say apoctano, that you see that new and go, hey, liquid verb with that new as a liquid consonant, and then you tack on that circumflex accent, that particular combination should tell you that it's future anyway, right? So again, minus the iota, plus the fact that you're dealing with a liquid consonant, plus that circumflex accent tells you you're dealing with a future verb here, third plural, and you can go back, and some of them they will kill, or and they will kill some of them. Either way you want to play with that. Let's go back to the beginning. For this reason, or because of this, also, the wisdom of God said, I will send prophets and apostles to them, and they will kill some of them.